The first video I did for the channel was about the Hutts and how they helped to shape early Star Wars history, going from an empire with the potential for galactic domination to the Killiks system and the cartels we know from later periods of Star Wars. Today we're going to go back even further in Star Wars lore to look at how some bugs, the Killiks, helped form the Star Wars galaxy. Literally. Killiks were the original evolved inhabitants of the planet of Alderaan, and most of what we're covering today takes place before human colonies ever even set foot on the planet, which didn't occur until around 27,500 years before the Battle of Yavin, or BBY, which was again almost 2,500 years before the formation of the Old Republic. Although they originated on Alderaan, the Killiks would spread throughout the galaxy, particularly down the Polemian trade spine. Killiks were an insectoid species like the Geonosians or Verpine, and their most notable feature, which helped their galactic success, was that they operated as a hive mind. Killik society was organized into several nests, each one essentially acting as and being referred to as an individual entity, sharing all thoughts and memories. For example, when speaking to a member of the Tharut hive in 44 ABY, albeit the Queen, the member was just referred to as Tharut, as would any other individual member. Given enough exposure to a particular hive, other non-Killiks could be absorbed into the hive, becoming what was known as a joiner. These joiners would then have their own individual memories added to the collective mind, which brings up one of the problems with finding information from such early periods, even though the Killiks could technically remember hundreds of thousands of years of history. To Killiks, there was virtually no discernment between fact and fiction. Any memory was simply a memory, whether the memory was of something that had actually happened, or which someone simply saw happening in a work of fiction, making them somewhat unreliable narrators, which is especially problematic when it's the aforementioned conversation with Tharut herself that's the source for a lot of what we're talking about today. Before about 35,000 years before the Battle of Yavin, the galaxy was dominated by a species known as the Celestials. The exact nature of the Celestials is the topic of much speculation both in and out of universe, with the Jedi and Sith in particular believing that they were the beings who were directly absorbed into the Force to direct its current. You may be familiar with some of the examples of Celestials we have seen in Star Wars media, where at least 4 directly show up, or at least according to Tharut, they're what the Celestials eventually became. First we have the Father, the Son, and the Daughter, known as the Mortis Trio, or the Ones, or the Force Wielders from the Clone Wars series, and the fourth was Abeloth, or the Mother, the primary antagonist of the Fate of the Jedi series. While the Celestials were the dominant force in the galaxy for tens if not hundreds of thousands of years, many other species of the time came to serve them, including the Rakatans and the Killiks. The Killiks, who referred to the Celestials, and particularly the Son and Daughter, as the Architects, essentially served as a massive construction force for the Celestials. Through the Celestials, the Killik nests were able to use the Force, which they were shown using in almost every element of their massive construction projects, from moving massive steel girders to propelling themselves through space around their projects. Most famous of these projects, particularly of those that the Killiks are confirmed at least by themselves to have made, was Centerpoint Station, a massive station in the Corellian system which the Killiks called Kolaralok, since everything related to the Killiks apparently has to be a palindrome. This station, constructed around 100,000 years before the Battle of Yavin, was essentially a gigantic tractor beam. It was not only in the Corellian system, but was also supposedly used to pull together the 5 planets to make the Corellian system. Using Centerpoint, the Killiks were also responsible for helping in the creation of the Maw, a giant maze of black holes which housed a much smaller version of the Centerpoint station, and was apparently created as a way to trap Abeloth, whom Tharut refers to as basically the embodiment of chaos, and who Tharut believes will bring the end of civilization in the galaxy. While Centerpoint is the most famous, other systems like Voltar appear to have other similar celestial devices, which were used to form those systems as well, and which may or may not have had Killik involvement in their construction. Despite this immense power wielded by the Celestials and their servants, the celestial power had disappeared for reasons unknown by the year 35,000 before the Battle of Yavin, and the Rakatans had already begun to form their own infinite empire to replace them, in opposition to other celestial servant species like the Qua. Without the Celestials, the Killik nests began to disband and disperse, and the fragmented nests made their way to the unknown regions. Sometimes they came into conflict with other denizens of the galaxy, like when they attempted an invasion of Korriban. Some segments remained in the known galaxy, including some underground nests on Alderaan, which would eventually fight the colonists every few hundred years, and who show up in the Old Republic MMO. After this point, the Killiks would remain in relative obscurity, with smaller individual nests being unable to have the same kind of impact that the broader Killik kind, united by the Celestials, had done. In 35 ABY, though, when some Jedi became joiners and helped bring together the nests and increase the influence of the Dark Nest, or the Gorog, the Killiks would again take the center stage in the galaxy and go to war with the Chiss Ascendancy, but that's a topic for another video. I hope you've enjoyed this quick look at the early Killiks and their influence on the galaxy. As always, let me know what you think in the comments, and if you have any other topics you'd like to see covered on this channel, leave that in the comments as well. This Thursday at 7 PM EST, we're also going to be streaming the second episode of my podcast with Eckhart's Ladder, Tapcaf Transmissions, where we'll be talking about X-Wing Rogue Squadron, so make sure not to miss that. The first episode is now available in actual podcast form for those of you who didn't have time or aren't able to watch the video. If you'd like to listen to that version of it, there's links in the description to the Podbean and Spotify versions of the podcast. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you next time.